Hey friends, happy Wednesday. It is Ask a Flower Farmer, and it is your friend and host Lisa Mason Ziegler, and really glad to be here with you guys today. I am kind of in a different spot than I normally am, and can't wait to connect with some of you guys and answer questions. So if you're new here, welcome. But what we do during the next 30 minutes is I do my best to answer your questions related to, growing cut flowers, flower farming, seed starting, cool flowers, Tucker questions or farm dog questions. And as you can see, I'm literally sitting in my living room, and I just thought this was kind of a warm, cozy place. There's my little Christmas tree and sitting here by the fire, and Suzanne and I have been filming soil blocking stuff all morning. And anyway, we're about to go. And Suzanne and I usually have a little afternoon together for Christmas. We go to lunch, and we're doing that today. And so it's kind of a fun time of the year. So if you have a question, if you post it in the bubble down below with the question mark, that way I do not miss your questions, right? So that feature seems to be working again now on Instagram. And while we're waiting for some questions to come up, I want to be sure that everybody knows that, Dave Dowling's course, which is in the Flower Farming School series, there's 3 of us. There's my basic, then there's Dave's, bulbs, perennials, woodies, and more. And then, of course, there's the expert level. We kind of think of it as Steve and Gretel's growing cut flower crops in hoop and greenhouses. And so we're kind of having a little something special this week for Dave's course. Dave has put together, y'all, I've clipped them together so I can't mess this up. Dave has made some of those really quick reference guides. Anybody that's at all familiar, if you don't know who Dave Dowling is, Dave is an expert cut flowers grower. He now works for Ball. He does not have his farm anymore, but he farmed for over 20 years. Full production, that was his full-time job. He actually was a flower vendor at the DuPont Farmers Market in Washington, D.C., which is known to be one of the busiest farmers market that there is. And he grew year-round, y'all. And that was his primary business model. And he did a lot of other stuff too. But Dave, we call in the industry a walking encyclopedia. I'm telling you, the man, every time, we've been friends now for over 20 years. And I'm telling you, every time we do a live together or we spend time together, I learned something I didn't know before. Last time he was here at my house, I learned from him why my Christmas cactus wasn't blooming. It's like he went into the bathroom, and then when he came out, he said, "You want to know why your Christmas cactus isn't blooming?" Anyway, Dave is a wealth of information. His course is so packed. It's unbelievable. So he's made this quick reference guide that if you're already his student, this was emailed to you on Sunday. But people that purchase and enroll in his course, which is available now, you can actually just comment here in the comments, bulbs, BULBS, and I'll DM you the link. That not only when you purchase the course, you get these exclusive guides, but if you get that link that I just mentioned, there's a sneak peek into his tulip session. You can just get a small taste of what Dave's course is all about. And this extra guide is only going to be available until Friday night at midnight. He and I will be talking about it tomorrow. We'll be live over on YouTube. So I hope you guys will join me over there. And so Dave's course, Dave is the man that you want to walk along beside him. When you purchase his course, that means you can join his private Facebook group where he swims in and out of, and you can there network with all of his students and support one another and build that amazing community or become part of that community. So comment bulbs, and I will DM you the link to get the sneak peek of the tulips. And also the more information about the course and where you can actually purchase it. And that would be an awesome thing to do. So it looks like we have a couple of questions here. So let's get started. All right, so let's see what this is. How should I make my stems super strong? All of mine seem to be very thin and falling over very easily. Thank you. So that's a really great question. And that sometimes happens. That usually means a lack of something. And most often, in my experience, and when it happens to me, it can be a lack of light. If you're not growing under grow lights and don't have them at the appropriate height, for the appropriate number of hours, which is 16 hours a day, that's what really grows strong, short, stocky transplants. Of course, along with proper air temperature for whatever it is you're growing, regular water every morning, and they're going through the water drying cycle, as well as nutrition. But I would say the most frequent flyer of causing that problem is low light of some fashion. I know that back before I used real grow lights years ago, I had learned, and I found it to be true, that if you're using just regular fluorescent strips from the store, those will work, but you have to change them every year. They just aren't quite strong enough, or they lose their vividness, I guess. I don't know the science of all that. I just know that I found that to be true. So give that a whirl. And I also pet my transplants. When I'm watering, oftentimes, once they get to be a couple inches tall, I don't want to knock them over. But while I'm watering the tray next to them, sometimes I'll just rub my hand back and forth once or twice. And that just kind of builds resistance and just contributes to it. And that's much easier to do once you get them outdoors on the in your hardening off stage when they aren't actually under grow lights. So I hope that helps you. Heavenly Scent Flower Farm, which stock variety would you recommend for Texas 9/8? Any tips on extending the harvest? So good question. Stock is a cool season hardy annual that I actually only plant in very early spring. Wow. While, excuse me, y'all, I think I just swallowed a hair or a feather or probably a dog hair, y'all. Stock will survive winters where you are, as they will where I am, but you don't want them to bloom in the middle of winter because A, we don't typically have anything else to go with them. And secondly, you can't really net them, which they require support to keep them upright in the middle of winter because they kind of do need a little bit of protection, at least where I am. So, stock really dislikes heat. The minute your season starts heating up, they start just not growing tall. They get shorter and shorter. So for 9A, I don't know when so the very early spring planting equation is normally to plant the transplants in the garden 6 to 8 weeks before your last spring frost. So in 9A, I'm not even sure you have a frost, but you would shoot to get them in the ground 8 weeks before your coldest temperature. You know what I mean? So that way, they're rooting in and getting established while the soil is as cool as it's going to get. And, stock may be a challenge for you because of this. Unlike most of the others, stock is kind of like holds a grudge. I say that about Lysianthus too. If you don't give them what they want, they just kind of like really make you have a bad day. So 6 to 8 weeks before your lowest winter temperature and the last one, when you're turning that peak, is when you want to plant transplants. And you're just going to have to draw a line in the sand, pick a date, and do it. So I would think that perhaps the earliest you can get your stock in the ground would be the best. So, you may be planting stock in January. And that would be, I plant it mid-February, but I'm still freezing cold then, right? But what you don't want to have happen is to plant them now. Well, it is December. Anyway, you'll have to experiment. And I do no successions because it just gets too hot too fast for me. So for us, we don't succession plant. Let's see. Top 5 flowers for a brand new farm. We are literally building beds in Florida now. Well, that is just really a wide open question. I always recommend that new flower farmers, whether you have farmed other crops like vegetables or anything like that, to always start with all annuals. I mean, why would you invest in high investment crops like bulbs and roots and shrubs and stuff when you don't even know what you're doing yet? Because you just really don't have no clue how different flower farming is or commercial cut flower growing is from gardening. I don't even care how big your garden is. It's just so totally different. So I always recommend starting with annuals. And if you're talking about planting for very early spring cool flowers, that's one thing, or or just regular summer stuff. But and who are you selling to? That's the other part of the equation. That is really, really common, but I would definitely recommend to you, you can see just from my books and on our website, what my favorite annuals are. You go to the warm season if you're waiting until spring, or go to the cool season and see what you can start for very early spring, and get a mix. It just depends on what you're going to do with them. But my recommendation, I find it most often that when we decide, because I did the very same thing, I won't even tell you how many thousands of dollars I threw away the first few years that I was actually flower farming, trying to grow I grew tulips and hyacinth and all different, and lilies and all kinds of stuff, and I didn't have a ton of customers yet. I really didn't have my science down on how I was doing it and weed prevention, and didn't sell them all, or sometimes I didn't sell any of them because of the quality was not good, because I didn't know what I was really doing. And so that's why my course is about basics. That's where you start. Y'all get some money flowing in, get in for low dollars, making some bucks, and then as you grow, you move on and expand. And then Dave Dowling would tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt, the minute that you're up and running and you realize this is what I want to do, I am going to be, because y'all, I can't tell you how many people start and then never come back the second year. You know, I mean, you got to just go slow and steady. That Dave Dowling says the moment that light bulb goes off on top of your head that you have found your passion career, you start buying peonies. And putting in like 25, depending on what your space is, every fall. It's too late to do it this year. But yeah, so that's what I have to say about that. What are olive flowers? I have no idea. Sorry, I cannot help you with that. That may be what sometimes happens. There's a common name. There's common names of flowers. Then there's the botanical names, the Latin names. And many times the same botanical named flower will have different common names in different areas of the world and of the country. So you need to find out what the botanical name is. So here we go. Based on your experience, what do you suggest for bed width and path width? Well, that's a great question. Again, I think it really depends on the maximum efficient bed width that I have ever had is 36 inches. I see sometimes on looking on social media, people with these really super wide beds, like 48 inches or more. And I have no idea how they harvest the middle of those beds without stepping into the bed. You know, we're big components of once our soil has been prepared and ready, we don't want to compress it. We do not put feet on top of the bed. So when I was younger, 36 inches was the best case scenario. But as I'm aging, and because my tractor implement that actually makes our beds now makes a 30-inch wide bed. And let me just tell you a little secret, and this is also in my new book, y'all. I grow in 30-inch wide beds now, but guess what? I grow the same spacing. I do the same number of rows with 6 inches less and get excellent results. So why would you have them wider is the moral of that story, because the thicker your canopy, healthy canopy, the less weed pressure there is. So 30 inches is my go-to bed width, and a pathway in a perfect world would be 24 inches. But ours are a little bit wider than that. We have to make 2 passes in the summer beds where we let just whatever grows up to grow up, and we mow it each week. We still have to make 2 passes. We've never ever had one push that got up against the beds the way that I like to do it. So anywhere from 24 to 30 inches for the pathways. Because friends, guess what? There is no dollars growing in the pathways. In my high production years, we had 18-inch pathways, but the people that worked for me did a lot of belly aching about that. And also think about that 18-inch wide path. The crops kind of bloom into the pathway. You know what I mean? They push in, and it's hard to walk up and down. Sometimes you damage the flowers. So 24 inches is really the best case scenario for that. And Merry Christmas to everybody. Rebel Kim May, is your course relevant for flower farmers in the tropics? That's a great question. So all of our Flower Farming School Series courses are not specific to any one particular region. It's really more about technique and what to grow. And I mean, mine, for instance, it does list annuals. Certainly your timing is different, obviously, right? But it also gives you the equation to figure out where it is that you should actually start. So I would say to you that it doesn't really matter where. I mean, we've had students all over the world. I've had students in South Africa and South America and Europe, of course, and just all over the world. And they are English, though. But yeah, so I would say they are definitely relevant. And, when you say tropics, there may be, like for Dave's course, I know that peonies, do need frost. Nothing that I talk about growing, we just talk about warm season tender annuals, which are obviously right up your alley. Cool season annuals, all the cool flowers that I recommend do not require a cold period except for a couple of Sweet Williams. All the rest of them just prefer cool to cold growing conditions. And there are a lot of people in Florida which are, they're not in 10, but in 9B and 9A, that have kind of tweaked the schedule so that they can actually grow some cool flowers and figure out how it fits into their tropics. So check that out. And, once you purchase any of our courses, you are then a member of the Gardener's Workshop family, which means that on our big school courses, once you're a family member, you get $50 off of individual school courses. So that's really cool. Do you recommend any flowers that can survive with slightly less than full sun after being transplanted? So in general, for a cutting garden to function properly, which means you cut it and it regrows continually, most of them with the exception of the single stem stuff like sunflowers and stock and stuff like that, right? Their life is to reproduce, and to reproduce, they need a full dose of UV rays, of sunlight, which is actually what really charges them to grow, right? So there are some that can get away with some afternoon shade, obviously, but in general, for a cutting garden to really be a cutting garden, meaning we cut it on Monday and we go back on Thursday and there's a whole nother flush of flowers that were just in bud on Monday that are now ready to cut. For that whole process to happen, you typically need full sun. And full sun, 12 to 14 hours is best, but 8 hours is kind of a minimum. In a landscaping situation, sure, a lot of them could get away with it because you're not cutting the flowers. They don't have to grow another one fast, right? So I know what you're talking about. And there are some flowers, I'm just thinking, that live on the edge. Many of the flowers will do better with some part shade if you live in hot, humid conditions, and also particularly if you pay special attention to healthy soil. That really makes a big, big difference. So I wish I had better news for you, but that is, I struggled with that for so many years. Before I married Steve, I lived my whole garden was under this huge canopy of these enormous oak trees, right? And I struggled because I kept trying to grow full sun stuff, and once somebody introduced me, this was before I was a flower farmer, to shade gardening, and that's how I met hellebores and Lenten roses and so many others, all the flowers that are right outside this window under that big magnolia tree. They're wonderful, but they aren't the classic cutting garden plants. So there are things that grow, but not classic cutting garden stuff. And there are some people that have had success, and that's great, but I haven't tried it. Do you teach organic and regenerative farming with your course? We do not use any pesticides, even organic pesticides, in my course. Dave and both of the other flower farming courses in the Flower Farming School series, Dave Dowling and Steve and Gretel, may offer suggestions when you get a bad pest issue that may not be organic. Steve and Gretel are really, really strong in pursuing organic practices. They work closely with universities on IPM, which is Integrated Pest Management, meaning they do a lot of beneficial insect releases, and so they're really trying to get away from it. None of us teach regenerative farming, which is a whole subject in itself, right? But we talk about building soil. I mean, that's been the start of my whole career, right? As a flower farmer, this place that I farm and garden, Steve's grandparents were here and composted it for like 60 years before I got here. Back before any of this was cool, y'all. They did it because that's what they had with manure and leaves and made compost. So we are all about building the soil, but no, you will not get any regenerative farming information in any of these courses. But we all are pretty dedicated to doing sustainable, non-pesticide solutions. And we don't even use organic pesticides here on my farm. So I hope that answers your question. And one of the things that I think it's so hard when you're looking for and let me just tell you, as a book author, and by the way, y'all know my book is coming February. Oh my gosh, all the time is drawing near. And remember, there is a pre-order bonus special for those folks that pre-order through the Gardener's Workshop. We have a special immediate download, the Cool Flower Hardiness Zone Guide. That's what it's called, the Cool Flower Zone Guide. It's like 9 pages of where we break them out through the zones, like when you would plant and whether you plant it fall, spring, very early spring, that kind of stuff. So that's available. And then when the book ships in February, after I sign it, you get another download, the book, The Flowers That Didn't Make the Book. Because what I wanted to say was, I know that we're all looking for one-stop shopping, but let me just tell y'all something. When you start giving details of doing things, there is just not enough, you don't have enough bandwidth to take it all in at one time. So for me, what I have kind of learned, and this is so true in business, I take business courses all the time, currently doing one, and it's like, I would love to have one business course that tells me everything, but there isn't. I have like 10 different courses, and they all kind of go into the area. My course is all about starting a flower farm, naming your flower farm, what you grow to learn how to be a flower farmer, who do you sell to, how do you harvest and condition. Do you know what I mean? And seed starting, which is a key piece of being a profitable, successful flower farmer. Then Dave takes you to the next level, teaching you how to expand, sell more to the same people you're selling to. And then Steve and Gretel, you know what I mean? So I understand, but I don't know that the business savviness, the business experience that we offer, you wouldn't be able to take it all in. So just to answer that, sorry. When should I start straw flower seeds, then move outside? So straw flowers, we plant in very early spring. So that is meaning you have transplants ready to be planted 6 to 8 weeks before your last spring frost. So we start ours about 4 or 5 weeks before that date. So we start them right out of the gate in January. All right, so let's see what we got here. Got a couple more. Heaven sent, can I expect my Dara that did not bloom last year to bloom this coming spring? Thank you for the Dara soul blocking tips. I have oddities, oodles of baby seedlings ready for very early spring planting. Oh, excellent, excellent. No clue whether they'll bloom this year. I don't know why they didn't bloom last year. You know, could it be day length? Could it be fertility? Could it be anything? So let us know about that. So for sure, if you have the space to leave them in, see what happens. And we actually have some that we're getting ready to plant out. I actually already started them for very early spring planting because, you know, that Dara, we just can't do without it. And it is such a good beneficial insect. One. Delightful dilemma. Do you recommend scattered gardens for cut flowers? I don't know what a scatter garden is, but I would say no. A scatter garden, I don't know if you're talking about direct seeding, like just scattering seeds. And no, it's very, well, that's very dreamy to think of, like starting a wildflower type garden. It is incredibly, a lot of steps to really have that happen and be weed free enough to allow the plants to thrive. For harvesting and support and cultivating and all those things. For home gardening, go for it. You know what I mean? That's your choice. But to grow a cut flower garden that actually produces on a regular basis for the long haul, I would say no, but I may not be thinking about what you're exactly talking about. Good morning, Cultivating the Heart. Sunflower for Mother's Day. Bloom around 50 days, so start about 75 days before Mother's Day. Thank you. So let me read that again. So start about 75 days before Mother's Day. So she is asking about our early bird sunflowers, which we typically have sunflowers for Mother's Day because we push the envelope. And so if you're saying that your seeds bloom around 50 days, you must be talking about Premier. And I guess there's a couple others that are that short. I typically start our pro cuts the 1st of March, and then they're set out under double row covers sometimes, depending on what the weather's doing, 2 to 3 weeks later. And then from then on out, I get started every week. So even if I was too early for Mother's Day, although I doubt that, you have others that are coming along. So that sounds pretty close to me. Because definitely when the days are shorter, like before Mother's Day, it's going to take them a little bit longer. So better to start earlier and do it every week and get your successions going, and you will not be sorry. Because guess what? That's the biggest demand season of the year for flowers. So whether it's Mother's Day or not, you'll sell them. I am Zone 6. I'm planting flowers for my late June wedding. What varieties do you think I should include? I have no idea because I have never I will tell you that is one of the most admirable things that I appreciate about Jenny Love's course, Farmer Florist School, because she talks about planting crops for weddings. I mean, she literally grows for, you book her for a wedding this year, for next year, she plans her crops. I have never done that. We plant as early as we can and as often as we can for succession planting, and then just take what comes and sell it all. So I cannot help you with that. But in June, it doesn't really matter what winter hardiness zone is. It's your frost date that really dictates that. But I would think that if you had fall planted lots of cool flowers, that's what would be an abundance of bloom in June. Very early spring planting may or may not make it, and I don't know that warm season stuff can go in early enough. So I would say your best bet would be, I would be seed starting right now for very early spring planting of cool season hardy annuals, of a few just super hardy stuff, snaps and sweet William, and go from there. But yeah, fall planting of cool season hardy annuals for those that are winter hardy in your zone, which is quite a lot, have been blooming at that point in time. My book, Cool Flowers, can really, if you're not familiar with that concept, tell you all about that. Top 3 tips for successfully growing dahlias. We do not grow dahlias anymore. I did grow them for several years. The pest pressure was ferocious for us here in the South, and I could make more money selling other things. I could sell dahlias, don't get me wrong, but they were just too labor intensive. So I'm sorry I can't help you with that. I know that Dave Dowling talks about that he watered a lot. They're hungry, and you just have to really keep them cut because they're very productive. What is the best soil? What are some good autumn looking perennials? Well, I don't grow perennials really on our flower farm, so I can't help you there. Best soil for your garden is rich in compost and leaf mold, and you build it slowly over years. Every time we flip a bed, we added 2 to 4 inches of finished compost or leaf mold for years, and that just built an amazing well-draining and very rich with microbe soil, and just really grows great stuff. So friends, I just want to remind everybody again that Dave's course, if you purchase this week, Flower Farming School online, bulbs, perennials, woodies, and more, and if you've never heard Dave Dowling teach a class or know him, you are in for a treat. Dave is a walking encyclopedia, and his course is set up just that way. You can go in and go straight to lilies, straight to tulips. But this week only, we're offering his special guide he has put together on peonies, lilies of the field and greenhouses and tunnels, gladiola production, and also how he recommends you overwinter eucalyptus. So these 4 guides can be yours when you purchase. If you are already his student, this was emailed to you on Sunday, and so you'll get it. And friends, remember to catch Dave and I tomorrow. I believe it's 4 o'clock on YouTube. We'll be talking about the course. He'll be happy to answer your questions. And remember, we have some great instant Christmas gifts. You can pre-order my book, and you have, with your confirmation comes a download of a gift card that you can print out and fold, and it tells them exactly what they're getting, and it's kind of pretty. That would be really great to give. We also have gift certificates, which are useful on products, not on courses, but you can also purchase any of our workshop courses as gifts. I mean, you can give Jenny Love's Making Workshops Work for You, or my Seed Starting course. Any of those workshops you can give as a Christmas gift. And remember, y'all, I don't know if you know this or not, my very first book that came out, back in 2006, The Easy Cut Flower Garden, is now available as a digital download. I think it's like $10. And you can get that instantly. And so I would love for you to get it. So I hope to see you tomorrow. Merry Christmas to everybody. Remember, there's no show on Friday this week. And we're taking next week off. The warehouse is piling up orders, but they'll be back to work in early January to get everything taken care of. So friends, until we meet again in the new year, well, actually, I'll see you tomorrow, right, with Dave. But check us out tomorrow, because anybody that wants to grow and scale their business, or if you happen to be an avid gardener that wants stellar information on 70 different crops, this course is for you too. And you get instant access to the entire course. It's on demand now. And we would love for you to become, get on the inside with Dave and become a member of his exclusive community. So friends, until we meet again, I'll see you later. Ciao, and Merry Christmas.